EU5 is here, but that doesn't mean it's not hard to choose who to play as, especially if you're coming in hot and fresh. Among the thousands of countries in this game, I have picked the top 3 countries that will at once come across as fun and challenging when played in succession, and with just the right amount of difficulty for any new player, and I'm even going to give you the order in which you should play them. I made another video on this topic way before release and before I'd played the game myself, but now I have actual experience. So without further ado, it would mean a lot if you left a like on the video, consider subscribing to the channel, and let's get going. The first country any player should start their EU5 journey as is England, and I don't care if you think it's a cliche, just listen to what I have to say, because it is valuable, young grasshopper. England begins Europa Universalis 5 in a precarious situation. Right off the bat, a few weeks into the game, you will begin the long and arduous fight with France in the 100 Years' War. You might find it strange then that I recommend one of the few countries known in this time period for literally fighting a 100-year war, but bear with me. England begins strong. Its economy is large and you begin with a fairly hefty purse, offering you many avenues for spending that money right off the bat. Make some very simple adjustments to your budget, wait for the first month to pass, and you can see that you're making a fairly sweet profit without having to do anything really. In terms of resources, England doesn't necessarily sport the most valuable resources out there, but it has a little bit of most things, like coal, salt, wool, iron, tin, copper, silver, and a whole bunch of wheat, which will go an extremely long way to make you more or less self-sufficient in terms of food. You are positioned on an island, and properly investing in your navy, which shouldn't be too hard since you can recruit naval units pretty much right away, allows you to fortify and secure that island from continental invasions. France doesn't even begin with a navy. The 100 Years' War will require you to pick your battles and make good use of the situation's war mechanics, like calling in outside powers to your cause if France attacks you. But at this point in time, the war is actually quite winnable if you play your cards right. In terms of wars though, other than with France and fighting either the Irish or the Scots on mostly your own terms, England is fairly safe from the rest of Europe. It is true that you're going to want to pay attention to the nobility in your country, as they are mighty powerful. But over time, by choosing the right privileges for yourself, empowering the other states, and moving your cultural values from aristocracy to plutocracy, you're going to manage to weaken the nobility significantly. Remember also that England is in a prime location for relatively early colonization, so making use of advances that increase your colonial range and give you better ships will definitely be important. Of course, England also sports a massive amount of unique flavor content and events, which makes an already exciting country even better. In other words, England is the perfect starting nation primarily because it begins rich, quite powerful, but also in a relatively remote and defensive location, which is absolutely suitable for any hopeful EU5er. Now, if you for some reason have an aversion to England, there are some alternatives to your first playthrough. Both France, Castile, and Hungary are all powerful countries that you may choose for your first playthrough instead of England, and will all offer a bunch of interesting content. The country I think you should play after testing your mettle as England, meaning after you have learned the basic mechanics and want a bit more of a challenge, is Norway. Now you might think I'm biased here, but hear me out. Norway is a smaller power in EU5 with a comparatively tiny levy, no navy, and it even begins in a union with Sweden, a union that treats the partners as equal for now, but since Sweden has a higher power ranking, Norway will probably see Sweden attempt a union seniority vote fairly soon. However, Norway is also in a fairly sweet position. It is far away from most of the European conflicts, it is implicitly allied to Sweden defensively, which safeguards it from say Denmark, Novgorod, and yes, Sweden itself. And importantly, it begins with a silver mine and one wheat province. Norway will demand that you cultivate and develop your capital region, since that is where most of your control and proximity is, meaning this is where you can make the most money. However, by building a navy, you can control the seas, meaning that proximity can actually increase via the sea, not just the land. Now, you will do well to once again attempt to increase your crown power, since the nobility is once more very strong in Norway. But especially important for Norway, because of its underdeveloped country, is that you do everything you can to move your national value away from decentralization towards centralization. Increasing crown power and centralization will go a long way to increase control, and therefore your tax base. In terms of the Swedish question, there are a few routes you can go. Sweden might just fall into rebellion a few times and lose a few foreign wars, thereby lowering its power rank and suddenly making you the potential senior member. If that happens, you better go for that senior partner vote immediately. If not, there are a few things you can consider. Increasing your relations with Denmark to create a bulwark against Sweden, as Denmark is more powerful in the early game, or attempt to even ally Scotland, although Scotland is likely to rival you and probably be where you'd like to expand in the future, but at least it might be an option if you're lucky. You could theoretically also change your succession laws before Sweden unifies the succession laws of both countries, which means that you can in theory get a different heir than they will, and in this way break the union. As Norway, however, even more so than with Britain, you're going to want to focus heavily on your navy, because if you happen to be at war with anyone on the continent, your navy can and will be able to sink entire armies into the sea before they even set foot on Norwegian soil. The seas around Scandinavia and the British Isles are perfect for this, seeing as you'll have to island hop around Denmark to even reach Sweden, and it's impossible to reach the Orkneys, Iceland, Ireland, Greenland, Britannia, and let's face it, Norway itself without a proper navy. And because most European countries are not able to take the land route all around the continent through Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland and Sweden, a navy will see you pretty much impregnable. In terms of that control across the sea as well, Norway's values are heavily naval based, which helps you create that proximity over the ocean rather than over land. If you're not up for Norway just yet, a great alternative is Venice, a similarly navy and island-based country, yet one that is deeply integrated in Italian and Catholic affairs. Is richer than Norway, but one which immediately also will struggle in land conflicts against its nearest and biggest enemies. The country I think you should play as your third EU5 nation is none other than Byzantium, and the reason is simple. While England is beginner-friendly and leaves a ton of wiggle room, while Norway is challenging but really gives you that sense of development and an underdog playthrough, Byzantium once again provides that fiery, intense back-from-the-brink experience. Byzantium is in crisis from the get-go, with extremely powerful estates that drain your coffers, with low stability and legitimacy and even civil wars that will test your patience, and with powerful enemies at your doorstep in the Ottomans and the other Turkish beyliks. Byzantium begins in a deficit with few ways to stabilize and is already even in debt. However, it's possible to get out of it. Byzantium does begin individually stronger than any of the countries surrounding it, meaning that initiative is vital. To its immediate north, it shares borders with mostly friendly Orthodox neighbors, and through some greasing of palms or improved relations, creating allies or even defensive pacts is not just possible, but vital for survival. Remember also that you have a navy here, which can block the straits for you. However, whether you choose to disband your standing army or navy to save money is up to you, but by cleverly utilizing what you have and everything you have learned from playing England and Norway, succeeding as Byzantium and taking back what is yours, while stabilizing the empire and uniting the Orthodox kingdoms around you, is not just a dream, but a real possibility. One of the most fun thing in any strategy game, but especially EU5, is to get over that extremely difficult early game hump as Byzantium, because it truly shows you not just what is possible, but combines everything you have learned, proving that you have what it takes to make it anywhere. And that is why Byzantium is who I believe should be your third playthrough. England, Norway, and Byzantium in that order are my recommendations for starting countries for any new player when you begin your journey through EU5. But what do you think? And do you have any questions about which other nations might be challenging, easy, or fun? Make sure to let me know in the comments, leave a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel for more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!